Okay, again, just to all the people, new people who came, this event will be recorded and we will post a link later on. Again, if you have any questions during her talk, please feel free to give them to me through the Q&A box. Also, there are an opportunity for discussion after she gives her talk. And again, feel free to use the chat if you want to share your LinkedIn information. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Today's talk is leveraging LinkedIn as a freelance medical writer. We're pleased to have Sophie Ash here today to talk with us about it. Today, having an active profile on LinkedIn and posting on LinkedIn and interacting in discussions is an integral part of establishing your personal brand and managing your career. And as a freelancer, it's a way to attract clients and potential employers. But again, even if you're not a freelance writer, today's information may be useful for you to help you, again, navigating your career through LinkedIn. Sophie Ash, she's a highly experienced medical writer, has dedicated her career to coaching freelance medical writers by helping them with networking and establishing their own personal brands. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to turn it over to Sophie Ash. Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks, Craig. I'm going to start sharing my screen now and
Got it?
load up my presentation. Let me know if you can see that, okay?
I can see it okay. Can everyone else see it okay?
Okay.
Can I see some thumbs up? Yep, we got thumbs up. All perfect. Okay, good.
Okay, great, great. So yeah, as Craig sort of briefly mentioned, I have about a 40-minute presentation that I'm going to go through, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for questions at the end. So there is a lot that I want to get through. So if you do have questions, please do put them in the chat or make a note of them because we'll have a Q&A at the end. If we have interruptions throughout, then it's just going to get really long and difficult to manage the time here. But we're going to be talking about leveraging LinkedIn as a freelance medical writer. As Craig said, if you're not freelance or you're looking for full-time opportunities or just want to optimize LinkedIn in general, then all the principles are going to be applicable to you as well, just maybe not as prominently as it will be for a freelancer. So Craig's already done a brief intro, but I am a medical writing coach. I focus more on the freedom lifestyle side of things, so helping people build lives that meet their needs and so that they can actually thrive and enjoy their life instead of feeling like a slave to their work. So what I like to do is blend the business acumen side of things with the psychological principles that are kind of behind business and freelancing. And so that's what I've tried to do in this presentation, and anything you want me to go into further, we can do at the end. Just quickly, I wanted to cover what we'll be talking about today. So I want to talk about how you can use LinkedIn to grow a medical writing business or secure, oh, can't hear anything. I think other people can hear, so maybe try and change your settings. All right, so how you can use LinkedIn to grow a freelance business or secure a full-time role if you want to apply it that way. Practical choices that should shape your LinkedIn visibility and engagement. What really matters for reach and credibility on LinkedIn. How clarity and positioning can attract opportunities for you. And a big part of today is talking about how we can shift from chasing clients to actually being sought out directly by them. That's the mindset shift that I want to impart on you today. And then we'll have 20 minutes of Q&A where you can think about how you want to apply these concepts in your business. Sorry, my cat is trying to get up onto the balcony and I can't facilitate that right now, so she might just be walking in front of me. So how would your lifestyle or sense of freedom shift if you didn't have to hustle for every client, but instead were sought out for the unique value that you bring? This is some food for thought that I want to offer you before we get into the practical stuff, because I really see LinkedIn as a tool for us to get more of what we want in our life. And if that's freedom, then that means more work, more money, less busyness, less stress, less financial worry. And I really think that LinkedIn can help us. Oh, sorry, the cat is now pressing on the keyboard. I'm going to unplug that so she can't do that anymore. Yeah, we'll revisit this kind of thought at the end of the presentation because this is what we're going to be kind of talking about indirectly. And so I'll bring it back at the end to kind of see how you think differently about LinkedIn. Okay, LinkedIn sustainability. Yes, if you do have questions, the chat is fine. I will take a look at the end. Okay, so a lot of people see LinkedIn as a never-ending networking event, and it can feel like that. A lot of social media can feel like that because you're constantly using it and scrolling and seeing stuff, and it's never ending. But I think that we can look at it very differently. And I think that if we approach LinkedIn in a sustainable way, when we first start building out our business, then it can be really, really helpful and it doesn't have to feel that way at all. So what I like to think about it is if, this the difference between if you were at a conference and you were hopping from one booth to the next and trying to talk to all the people is quite tiring. Versus if you have your own booth, you're actually hosting one, then people will come to you and you're just sitting there and then they come up to you and you can have a chat. So the difference between the outbound efforts and the inbound efforts can really help to create more of a sense of balance in the energy that you're putting out and the results that you're getting back. So I do have a visual that I'm going to be showing that I'll keep coming back to as well to illustrate this. So basically you have the outbound LinkedIn efforts here on the left. So that's everything that you're doing on LinkedIn to proactively put things out into the world so that people can find you, so that people can learn things about you. On the other side, you have the inbound LinkedIn efforts. So this is everything you do that makes people come to your booth. This is everything in terms of like setting up your own booth and being approachable and being interesting and just engaging with the people who come to you as opposed to going around chasing everybody else. And in the middle is the sweet spot where clients are coming to you and you're not having to like pitch to them. You're not having to beg them to hire you. If you find a good balance between the inbound and the outbound efforts on LinkedIn, this is what's going to happen. And I see it happen time and time again. I have a few screenshots of people I've worked with who've said this just to kind of show you what it can actually be like if you haven't experienced this yet. So this person said, I just got my first dream client who found me on LinkedIn. I'm so happy. And then they said it was actually two clients because they had another meeting that same day. Both clients looked at my profile on LinkedIn and my website and strongly resonated with my branding. Each one contacted me for a different specialty area, and they both want a combination of writing and design, which is how we position her brand. I enjoyed both meetings a lot. I feel like we've done an amazing job making sure I naturally attract type of projects and people I want to work with. So she didn't have to do anything in particular to have these people come to her. It was about how she positioned herself and how her brand was able to work on her behalf when she wasn't there. This other person said, someone I know recommended me to a client at an international women's health conference, and the client loved the website and LinkedIn posts. We're meeting today. So we're going to talk more about this kind of ecosystem of how people find you, but LinkedIn is a really big part of it. So we cannot underutilize that. This person had a message from a potential client on LinkedIn asking if they were interested in a scientific writer role. And this is like a brand new person I just started working with a few months ago. So they're not even active on LinkedIn yet. They haven't even really been using it. They didn't even see the message for a couple of days. But because we optimized their profile, people are still finding her. And she's already getting leads, even though she's not actually launched her business yet. So she sees it as a great opportunity to kind of start the process of working with clients, even though she hasn't officially launched yet. And there's another one here, and these all happened just in the last like less than 2 weeks. So I get these messages all the time. A former colleague reached out to me this week with a very specific scientific question. I gave her a brief insight and said I would research it further just for fun because it was interesting. The next morning, she asked if I was available to do this analysis for a fee. I don't know if she read my new LinkedIn bio, but this is exactly the kind of project I want to attract. And she actually secured this project just a few days later, and it paid really well. And that was her first ever freelance project. So it all came from the positioning on LinkedIn and thinking very strategically about how that could work. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. So one thing you need to keep in mind before you work on your LinkedIn is a couple of things. So there's the archetypes, which we're going to talk about now, and then there's the ideal client mapping, which is coming next. So I'm just going to very briefly touch on each of the archetypes. I've actually done a whole webinar on this because I came up with a quiz and we all went through it, and we talked about like how each archetype maps onto different types of clients and different marketing approaches. This is just going to be a really high level version of this because I can't go into it all now, but if you do want to learn more about this, let me know. But I want to give you a high level overview of this because it really does have to impact the way you actually build out your business and the model that you use. Because if you're going against your personality, everything's going to be harder. Everything's going to feel heavy and draining, and it's not actually going to convert anybody. But if you're working with your personality and with your strengths and what interests you and what you're good at, then you'll find everything will be much smoother and you'll have that momentum that you're looking to create. So again, just to remind you, this is kind of going to impact or influence both your inbound and your outbound LinkedIn efforts, which is why I think it's a good place to start. So there's 6 different archetypes, I believe. I'm just going to briefly touch on them. If there's one of them that jumps out more to you than others, then note it down and any kind of key insights that you get from it, because you might find that you fall under a few different archetypes, but there's going to be one that's going to be like the main one that resonates with you. And none of them are right or wrong, they're just different. So there's the visionary leader who loves the idea of becoming an authority figure in their niche. So they really thrive when they're sharing their perspectives and insights and their story in a way that is influencing other people in the field. So they really want to be seen and heard. They have a lot to give. They want to feel appreciated and they want to feel listened to as a leader. So writing is a way for them to spread their ideas and expertise while shaping conversations and influencing best practices in the field. So that's a visionary leader. Then we have the freedom architect. They're really all about the lifestyle. They want to be able to live freely, have autonomy, have a lot of flexibility, and not much accountability to other people. They want to make their own decisions about their life and their future. They'd rather have tons of freedom than a huge roster of clients or fame or even making a big impact in the field. They do love writing, but they see it more as a way to fund their lifestyle rather than like wanting to do writing specifically. Then we have the catalyst. The catalyst is really all about supporting innovation and driving change in the medical industry. So they want to get involved in exciting missions that companies are on and kind of partnering with these companies to amplify their voice and their message. And they want to help improve patient outcomes. They want to advance research. They want to challenge the status quo. And so writing is a tool for how they can make a bigger impact. And they want to be a strategic partner for projects that they feel are innovative. So that's the catalyst. The connector is someone who's all about relationships and they just want to connect with people in meaningful ways as a means to create opportunities for yourself and other people. So you love collaborating, you like working with really intelligent, capable people. You find it really easy and enjoyable to build rapport with people and actually you thrive under those conditions. So you're bringing people together with your writing and you're creating these meaningful partnerships across teams, across client groups, and different audiences as well. That's a connector. Then we have a quiet powerhouse. So this is somebody who doesn't want to be in the spotlight. They just want their work to speak for themselves. They have really high standards. Everything they do is very high quality, and they pride themselves in being a trusted go-to person for their clients. They love getting personalized referrals from people who know that they're the best in the industry. And they love knowing that their clients rely on them to do things that could be high pressure or challenging or risky or tight timelines or what have you. But they're very much behind the scenes and they are potentially involved in more high stakes types of deliverables because they're more critical to their client success. That's the quiet powerhouse. I believe this is the last one. So the amplifier is someone who really wants to basically amplify the voices of the missions and the visions that people have, and particularly telling stories that they feel are interesting or empowering or going to have an emotional response in people. So they're really all about uplifting other people, supporting other people. It could be like some very groundbreaking topics, could be things that people tend to misunderstand or misinterpret, or just things that you find really interesting that is not like people are not understanding it or the message is not getting out. So that's the amplifier. So depending on which of these you resonate with most, you need to let that influence how you actually set up your branding and how you approach your messaging as a whole. And that will feed into what we'll talk about later on. The other area I wanted to touch on, which again, I've done a whole webinar on just this, but I think it's really important to mention, at least on a high level, because it affects how you set everything up and how you actually think about your business model or how you approach LinkedIn. It's ideal client mapping. So again, this is affecting both your inbound and your outbound LinkedIn efforts. This is very foundational work that you need to figure out and put some time into before you actually start doing things on LinkedIn. And this is why when people do make the changes, they see the results almost immediately because like we've already thought about everything before it actually happens. You know, there's no back and forth, changing tiny little bits. Like we already know what the strategy is going in. So that's what you have to do. So just touching on this very briefly, I like to think of the fact that anyone can be either a student or a teacher or both, because we all have things that we're trying to achieve and we all have things that are getting in the way of us trying to achieve them. So when we think about communication or marketing as a whole, we can simplify everything back down to these two factors. And that really helps to ground yourself in the approach that you take to your business. So it's also important to know that your client is not hiring you for these things. They don't need you to be a subject matter expert. They have those, or you can find those. They don't need you to be an expert in their brand or product or service. It might help to have that, but they don't need that. They can give you materials, they can explain things to you. They don't even need you to know their business objectives, like, or to figure out what they are. Like, they have a clear sense of what they are themselves. They don't need you to tell them anything they already know. Like they're experts in their field, in their area. So you're coming in to meet them where they're at and help them grow, not to kind of regurgitate things that have already been done. They're not hiring you to complicate their workflow. Like it shouldn't be more work for them to bring you in than it is to not have you involved. And they don't want to feel like you're adding to their to-do list because now they have to manage you and give you stuff to do and whatnot. What they are hiring you to help them do is achieve their business objectives while making their lives easier. That is literally it. So this has to be at the focus of everything that you do. And the way that you approach LinkedIn has to come from this understanding, because this is how you communicate with your ideal client. So if this has not been the focus for you up until now, it needs to become the focus. And if there's things on that list that I just went through that you're doing, stop doing them, because it's really not going to help you actually move the needle in your business. And this is true for employers too. You know, that's what you're there to help them and help their business grow. You're not there to be a burden on them and be managed or micromanaged the whole time. So when you really boil it down to where the value is coming from, it's these three areas. Maybe it's one of them more than others, but this is what it is. So the first one is helping them understand their problems better and why they haven't overcome them yet. So this is kind of acting as a consultant in a way, like showing them, okay, this is why you haven't achieved your objective yet. And like have an in-depth understanding of that is genuine, so that they know that they can bring you in and you're already at the front of the forefront of the industry and you understand what they're trying to do. The second thing is validating like the fact that they haven't achieved their goals yet. So you're not there to judge them for being in this situation and say, oh, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, or like clearly this wasn't going to work. Like this is how you can connect with them on an emotional level by saying, yeah, it makes sense that you haven't done that. You like it wasn't your fault that this happened. You were trying everything that you knew that you could. And just that validation, that emotional validation really helps you build a relationship with them. And that is valuable. That is a big part of why they might want to bring you into their team. And the third one is helping them get to their goals faster, easier, and or cheaper. That's a really huge one. So this all applies to business in general, but when you apply that to freelance medical writing, it does help you focus down even more on what you're trying to do and how you're trying to um, like relate to your ideal clients. So again, all of this has to be figured out before you actually start working on LinkedIn, putting stuff out there, building out your profile and whatnot, because if you don't know who you're serving or specifically what their goals are and their pain points or their barriers, then you're not going to be able to communicate these things to them. Like that's the work that has to be done. Okay, so we're going to focus more on the inbound efforts now. These are the things that will make clients come to you and pay attention to you and want to work with you. So I like to think of LinkedIn, like your profile on LinkedIn, as your personal storefront. So when someone's walking down the street and they see this store, what's going to make them want to come in or not come in? It's just as important that you repel the wrong kinds of people from your store than you attract the right kinds of people. Those are equally as important. You don't want like everyone in your store. Like it's not going to give the right, it's not going to create the right kind of vibe. It's not going to, like you're just going to be running ragged trying to serve these people, even though half of them shouldn't be there in the first place. So your profile is supposed to be converting people who are just lurking around into actual leads in your business and basically moving them from the browsing stage to the buying stage, like coming into the store and then looking around the store and then buying something in the store. This is probably the first time your ideal client has actually seen you or seen what you're all about. So you've got to make it count. You don't know when exactly they're going to land on your profile because this is inbound. So this is they've found you and now they're interested. So this is where you got to think about headline, banner, featured content, and make sure that you consider your archetype and your ideal client specifically, what they need, what they're looking for. Because the profile is not very big. There isn't much real estate, but you have to optimize every single tiny piece of it because that's your storefront. You know, if somebody has a sign on this store and it's all faded and half the letters are fallen off, you don't want to go in there. You know, like if you're looking for something luxury or something expensive or something really nice, you don't want to go in there. So it's that same kind of thing. Like everything counts. The design, the layout, like exactly how you format everything, it really matters because you might only get one chance to convert them. And I just want to have a side note here that if you have three niches or more, that means you don't have a niche. Like it really just needs to be one thing. And this is where the archetypes is really helpful because maybe it's not a therapeutic area or a type of deliverable. Maybe it's more about the way that you work with your clients and kind of what is unique about you that you bring to the client experience. And so all these things are important to think about. And then, you know, also thinking about what else is inbound LinkedIn efforts. When somebody has messaged you or they have reached out to you, sent you an email, whatnot, they've seen your profile, they love your store, they've come inside, they want to buy something. You then have to give them a really smooth ride through to actually becoming a client. So imagine like putting them on the back of this motorbike and just making sure that they don't fall off along the way. And like there might be some bumps, but you have to navigate that confidently. They've already gotten on the bike, so you're already halfway there, but you still have to take them to the end, you know, destination. Otherwise, it doesn't count for anything. So one thing I like to do that I did a lot in the beginning of my business years was to record all of my sales calls. So you don't necessarily obviously want to always tell them that you're doing that or just do it on your phone or whatever. It's only for your own use. No one else is going to see it. But I would record everything. I record everything on Zoom. I record things on my phone. I transcribe things and I analyze them. I analyze like what worked and what didn't. Because there are going to be clients who you love working with and clients who you hate working with. And they're going to be like differences between the people who find you versus the people who come in from other people. Like, so then you can ask yourself, okay, why are these people different? Why are people talking about me in this way and telling them this and sending me these people when that doesn't match up with what I think I'm all about or what I'm trying to do more of? Like, there's a disconnect there. You also need to be looking at like if you've been turning away opportunities that are misaligned for you. So why were you getting on a call with them in the first place? How could you prevent that from happening? Like, why did they think that they were a right fit for you when they weren't? Because this is just wasting your time and energy, what you that you could be putting into your ideal clients. How can you avoid that? And then also thinking about like, did you actually secure the projects? Like, did you both get off the motorbike together and sign the paper, or did you lose them somewhere along the way? If you did secure the projects or the opportunities, did you optimize the terms? Did you negotiate them? Like, could you have done a better job of that? Like, was there anything you could have improved on? And if not, then why did they fall off? Like, what happened? Was there a particular bump that you keep going over that you can't seem to get past? Or, like, what can you learn from this? So you can only really do that by actually analyzing these conversations. And one thing that I love to do is actually, like, I'll have my students send me screenshots of messages and emails and like exactly what the exchanges are. And immediately I will say, oh, that's why you haven't heard back from them. Like I can see in the wording, in the messaging, in the energy, like what is off, and then I can suggest and kind of like handhold them um to like make this journey smoother, basically, and that makes a huge difference. So you got to have someone to kind of train you on that if you're not good at sales or negotiation, but also you can analyze your own sales conversations and get better at them if you can be objective. Okay, so the outbound efforts are on the other side of the equation. Like, we've got to have some outbound efforts. Otherwise, there's nothing out there for your ideal client to actually find. Something has to be out there in order for them to see. It's basically like a signpost that points to your store, if you want to continue with the store analogy. So the inbound is like the storefront and the signage and everything in the store and the experience that they have in the store and kind of getting them to buy the thing. Whereas outbound is like a signpost that basically says, my store is over there and this is what I sell. So there's got to be some of that outbound as well. Okay, so I want to talk about pleasing the algorithm on LinkedIn because we all hear about this algorithm all the time. And honestly, it's like the most frustrating thing, even for people who are on top of this all the time and they post every day. And they do, like, I've done so many trainings, like paid trainings on LinkedIn, and I have learned all the tricks. And there's still things that happen unexpectedly. So you can't 100% just know what the algorithm wants. It changes all the time. But there are things that I've seen that have consistently affected how I've been able to create opportunities through LinkedIn. So this is what I'm going to talk about. The opening line of your post is definitely the most important part. So when you're writing something, that first line, it shouldn't really be about you unless you're telling a personal story. It should be about your ideal client. It should be something that interests them, something they're going to learn, something that's going to be beneficial to them. So this is where you need to know their goals, their pain points. And then everything after that is not as important because this is what trains the algorithm that your content is good. People are clicking the see more button. They want to see more of your posts. They're spending more time looking at your posts. They're not just immediately scrolling past because they don't connect with it. So, like, if anything, you have to practice that strong opening line. Not too many characters will fit above that see more button. And if it gets cut off, it's really not ideal because they're kind of missing the cliffhanger. But this is really, really important. It's better to have fewer posts that are niche and valuable to your ideal client than like tons of posts where some of them are like where it's all over the place or you don't have that consistency in your voice or in your message. So I would say, just spend more time on them and really think about how is this going to be valuable for your ideal client? What's going to make them want to read it? What's going to make them want to click your name and look at your profile? Like, what's going to make them go to your store and see what you're all about? That's what the posts are for, or anything that you're putting out there. That's what it's for. So you can try to incorporate like fancy things like photos, illustrations, diagrams, videos, GIFs, polls, whatever. It may or may not help your reach. I've seen people say one way, I've seen people say the other. I've had very mixed results personally with different types of posts. At the end of the day, it's the words that really matter because you're a writer and that's what you're actually connecting with your reader through. So I wouldn't worry too much about spending tons of time on these things. Some people really like to make carousels that, illustrate the things that they're saying in their posts, and they can do really well. But, when you balance that up with how much extra time it's going to take you, or if you're not very good at design, it's just going to make things worse because it's not going to look professional. So you got to think about all of that. I would say hashtags is not generally something that really helps with the algorithm, but what I would say from a branding standpoint is if there are maybe 2 or 3 hashtags that you regularly use with every single post, like for me, it's medical writing and freelancing and freedom lifestyle. Those are probably the most common ones, or maybe entrepreneurship. Outside of that, I don't really use any other hashtags because I want people to know what I'm all about. So once you know your niche and your positioning and your ideal client, then just pick a few just to kind of reinforce that niche. If you get 1 or 2 viral posts every now and again, it's probably not going to help. So I wouldn't aim to do that. Like I don't think that this is all about pleasing the algorithm, because there's so much more than that. And as we'll talk about later, like that's just one piece of the pie, basically. So try to stay grounded in what you're trying to do overall, which is to grow your network and increase the quality of the connections that you're making and the relationships that you're building. So it's not just posts. Some of my students, and again, this depends on their archetype, depends on what kind of person they are, but they will do a newsletter because they want to be positioned as an authority in the field. So this is more for the people who want to feel like they personally have a voice, and they are driving innovation, or they are building other people up with their stories. So every archetype could technically have a newsletter, but the newsletter would be completely different depending on the type of writer that they are. It's just one thing to consider. But then you also have to consider if you're writing for your ideal client or if you're writing for somebody who might know your ideal client, which changes the strategy. So it's one thing to consider because LinkedIn does have the newsletters built into the platform. And I really love that because it basically acts as an extended post and keeps everything all organized, and you don't have to have a separate email list or anything like that. So it's worth considering. Then you also have comments, shares, direct messages. These are all outbound efforts. And this helps to it's just like putting up more signs, basically. More signs that point to your store to have people come check you out. So comments can go a really long way. And if you don't want to post at all and you just do comments, you can be just as successful, if not even more successful than if you're posting every day. Again, it just depends on the kind of person that you are and what feels more like energizing for you and what makes sense for your particular company. But yeah, you're basically just flagging that your store exists and people can go check it out. You're not saying like, hey, can you hire me? Like that's not really what we're talking about. It could be that, but you like, it's like when people on the street they shove like the flyers in your hands and they're like, come to this event. And you're like, I don't even know you and I don't care about your event. Like we don't want to do that. What we want to do is just put up the sign and be like, if you're interested, there's a store over there and they will come. And so it's thinking about the actual decision makers who know your ideal client, if not your ideal client themselves. And the P stands for persona, by the way. So you should have like a fully fleshed out persona of who you're actually speaking to when you engage with people. Another thing you can do is keep track of the warm leads. So, who's clicking on stuff? Like if you have an email, like what are the open rates? Are they liking your stuff? I mean, a lot of people are not going to do that, but if they are, then that really shows that like they're basically coming through the doorway at that point in time. So like put out your hand, welcome them in, offer them a drink. Like these people want to be there. You just need to nurture them a bit more. And then, I mean, I'm not sure how much this helps these days, but I've always been very selective with who I actually connect with on LinkedIn. I personally believe that if we are connecting with everyone, it's not helping us at all from a business standpoint. I think we have to be selective. If they're not our ideal client or somebody who would know our ideal client, I don't think we should be connecting with them. That's just my personal way of doing things. I find it hard to manage a ton of connections and I want to kind of keep it quite tight and in my niche, in my realm. But again, like you might find that that doesn't work as well for you. So another kind of outbound thing that I want to touch on is the mindset side of things. So I mentioned earlier, like students will send me screenshots of emails they've sent or messages they've sent, and I will immediately know, like, oh, that's why you're not getting any conversions. That's why nobody's replying to you. Is because there's usually stuff going on beneath the surface that they haven't worked on yet, which is, why they're working with me in the first place. So I need to kind of uncover all of this to see what hesitations do they have, where are they lacking confidence, and how is this affecting their outbound communications? Because this is what's happening when you're actually making the sale, or making that first impression with somebody. So what you want to do ideally is you want to give your ideal client the impression that you're a master of your craft, or if you don't have much experience yet, that your standards are really high and you're very capable without trying to convince them of how good you are. Like, this is really key because confident people who are good at what they do, they don't go around trying to tell people how good they are. Like, they don't try to convince, hey, look at this, look at that, like, look at what I've done. Like, because that's a red flag. We don't trust those people. We're like, why are they trying so hard? There must be something wrong. It's like if we see a discounted car or something, we're like, there's got to be something wrong with that. I don't want that. I'd rather pay like the full price. It's because there's this undercurrent of doubt in themselves that people can sense, people can feel it. So if you have that, you need to work on that. And that's where coaching and mentorship and training really helps, because where's that confidence going to come from if you haven't done these things before? It's kind of a catch 22, but there are ways that you can, like, in learning how the way that you speak to people affects how they see you, you can get much more traction that then leads to more confidence. So it is like a self-perpetuating thing in whichever direction you happen to be spinning, if that makes sense. So the relationships you build need to be trust based and based around your actual capabilities. It's not like I told them I'm good at this and now they think I'm good at that and now I need to uphold that impression that they have of me, because that's exhausting. Like, that's not what I'm telling you to do. It's more about, like, they know what I'm all about. They know my niche, they know my specialty, they know my story, because I figured out from my archetype, from my niche, from my branding, what I'm all about, what kind of store I have. They know that. Like, even if they haven't actually seen your store, you've talked about it. So they have this image in their mind of what it looks like and what it feels like. That is your brand. They don't even necessarily need to go there. And now they can refer people, hey, you got to go check out this store because it has exactly this thing that you're looking for, within the price range that you're describing. And like, the people are great, whatever. So think about what you want people to say about you and make sure that's who you actually are, and then be that person. It sounds so simple, but you're not trying to put on a persona. What you're trying to do is build genuine confidence and capabilities that back you up when you're in these kind of sales conversations. So I wanted to add here that you can't usually see how your ideal client is engaging with you. And this is where a lot of people get discouraged and they drop off and they give up and they don't push through with building out their freelance business. So first of all, there's all the people who are not your ideal client, who you're not trying to serve, who you want to leave the store or not get there in the first place. Like, you don't want your signage to encourage the wrong people. But then there's all of the ideal clients who are actually there, but you can't see them. Like, if you're not in your store 24/7, because nobody is, people are still coming in. Like, people are still browsing and looking at stuff. You're just not there in every given moment, or you're not able to converse with every single person in the store at one point in time. So that's what's happening, is people are looking at your profile, like they're browsing the store, they're looking at your posts, they're like looking at the things that you're selling. They're looking at your writing samples, if they're in the featured sections, or if there's links that point to those things, or if you're sharing those things, and they're forming a judgment about you. Like, you could go to a store and love everything about it and not buy something on that particular day because you have something else on your mind, like you're on the way to run an errand or something. But in your mind, you're like, I've got to go back to this when it's a better time for me. Like, that's what's happening in the majority of cases, is that the timing just isn't right. But if they love what they see, they remember that. And again, they may tell other people to go even if they haven't been themselves. Then there's things that they could be doing, like other things that you can't see at all. Like they could take a screenshot of something that you share, something you write, they could save like an ebook or, whatever it is that you've got available there. They could make notes, they could talk to other people about you. So all of this could be happening, but you can't see any of it. So that's why it can feel like it's not working. And then all of a sudden, like there's a project, there's a client, like they kind of come out of nowhere. That's because this is all happening when you're not there. So again, just before we get into the Q&A, because we have just under 20 minutes left, I want to take you back to this idea that, if we don't have the hustle for every client that we have, every project that we get, and we can just really spend time making sure that we've optimized our online presence, that our brand is really strong, our messaging is really strong, we position ourselves favorably, we understand what our ideal client wants, we know we can serve them, we know how to have conversations with them to get that sale made, we know how to get people coming back to us, we've optimize our marketing approach to suit our personality and our strengths, and we're not doing any of the stuff that we hate or that we're not good at, how much more freedom would we have? This is really where the freedom comes from that I'm trying to help people create, that I am helping people create every single day. And this is why I don't work more than a few hours a day, because I don't need to, because everything has been set up and optimized. So the things that I do are the things that work, and people come. I'm not having to chase people around or go out of my way to try to find them. So that's what I wanted to cover. I have a lot of free stuff. I have two LinkedIn newsletters if you want to check those out. They're on my profile. I can put my link in the chat as well. I have an email newsletter which you can find on the Prosperology website. Really great resource. And I also host events all the time, very low cost for all kinds of different things. And there's a lot of networking and a lot of learning and community building that comes with that. So if you do want any particular resources, if you want me to custom recommend some resources, just send me a message on LinkedIn. That's the best way to reach me. Or you can email me, sophie@prosperology.com, and I'll be happy to send you some links and stuff like that. No strings attached. This is what I love to do. And like, I've already made all of this stuff, so I may as well give it to you. But yeah, that is everything. And then we can go into questions in the last 15 minutes or so.
Thank you, Sophie. So let's start with just a couple questions here that came in through the chat. The first one is making your posts completely public as opposed to visible only to your connections or followers beneficial? So as opposed to like just talking to your 500 connections versus just shooting it out there to anyone who comes across you.
Yeah. So there's actually no way to restrict who can see your post, because LinkedIn does tend to push it out to people outside of your network if they feel that those people will like that content. That's one of the ways that new people find your profile in the first place. But what you can do is, like I said, one way is just to not connect with anybody who's not your ideal client or people who are close to them in the first place. But again, that doesn't stop your post being shown to people outside of your network. So what you're essentially doing is just writing for your ideal clients, and you're ignoring everybody else because you're not there to like please everyone or help everyone. You're there to build a business. You're there to make the right kinds of connections in meaningful ways. So it doesn't matter if like the majority of people are not resonating with it. Those are not the people who are going to hire you. So you really just have to think about, like, this is why when you build out your ideal client persona, and maybe you have like a few different personas depending on the types of company or the types of role that they have, then that's who you're writing for. So you're probably not going to get as much engagement on those posts, but that's how you know you're doing it right, because then you'll get a message from them or an email from them saying, I want to hire you. So I think this is where a lot of people kind of get discouraged, as they notice like, oh, if I post this kind of thing, then I get a lot of likes or a lot of comments. But it's like, yeah, but those are not really the people who are actually going to hire you. So what are you really accomplishing with that? So it is public, and yes, you can choose who you connect with, which then allows them to direct message you or see certain things, because you can set up your profile in a way that hides certain things from non-connections if you want to. There's a lot of settings you can customize. You can go check those out, but it is public. And so you do have to keep that in mind. And that's one of the benefits too, because if someone lands on your profile, they can go back and see things that you wrote months ago and read them all. And that's basically like, like archives of your store, like boxes of stuff that you put out. Like maybe someone will be interested, maybe they won't, but it's like last year's stock or something. It's still valuable and some people will still look at it.
Well, I think that's a good point because my own impression of LinkedIn is like most of the stuff, winds up in my feed is coming from my connections. So the idea of
Mhm.
something public actually winding up, like someone's actually going to be searching for that is probably rare. But your point about, you got it out there and it's in your archive is might be more important. So if someone actually, lands on your LinkedIn page, and then of course, what are they going to do? They're going to look at their activity. So
Mhm.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. But in terms of doing something public, you probably should have to worry about it not going to people who aren't interested.
Yeah, and nowadays with the profile, you can choose what activity you want people who land on your profile to see. So it's like in your store, you can choose like I want to feature all the cooking books that we have, and I'm going to put them all on display at the like at the center of the store. That's like you saying, well, I post a lot, so I'm going to feature all of my posts on my profile. So when they come to my profile, they're going to read my posts. You can't feature everything, you can't highlight everything, but you have to think strategically about what am I best at? What am I doing regularly? What's easy and enjoyable for me? How can I connect the dots between what I'm doing and what I want people to see? And so, again, these are all like the settings that you can play around with in your profile and see how you want things to look. And then you can preview them as somebody who's looking at your profile for the first time, or you can log in on someone else's device and see how it's looking as well.
So the second question is, would you be able to show, or is there a way to find examples of, LinkedIn based upon the archetypes you've mentioned?
Mm. Yeah, as I came up with the archetypes as a form of reverse engineering because I've worked with so many different people on creating their personal brand, and every single one of them has been completely different. It's like you're never going to have the same type of person with the same background, the same interests, the same story, the same preferences, the same location. Like there's so many variables that affect how your brand can be cultivated. So you're never going to see the same person twice, or you shouldn't be. So what not to do is to go around looking at what everybody else has done and like taking things from it, which is what a lot of people want to do. It feels like a safer option. You can kind of try to get a sense of how successful somebody is based on what you see, but you're not really seeing the whole picture, so you don't actually know. And so the problem with doing that is that you're losing yourself and you're just trying to, again, like put on a mask and play a role of what you think people want you to be instead of actually being the best version of yourself. So I wouldn't advise you to do that. Like I think this is a very personal, self-reflective kind of process that you have to go through, and that's why it's helpful to have someone do it with you. If you know someone who's really good at personal branding. And that's one of my favorite things to do. Like people coming in to work with me, they don't understand any of this. Like they've never thought about themselves as a brand before. And so there's a lot of poking and prodding and like uncovering and questioning and research and stories and back and forth and experimentation to kind of uncover what is there, what is genuinely there. It's not about like how can I fool people into thinking that I'm this person so that I can be successful. It's actually who you are. And so that's where the mindset work and the confidence building is so critical, because that will actually enhance what's already there. So I don't really think that looking at what other people have done is really helpful. But what I would say is if you come across a profile or a website or something and somebody's presenting very confidently and you feel like I would hire them if I needed a writer, then ask yourself what you can learn from them. What is making you feel drawn to this person and how can you recreate that same kind of feeling with your own setup, with your own online presence? I think that's a more useful way of looking at it.
It seems to me that, basically everyone is different, so they should just kind of pick their own analogy and kind of run with it, because I certainly I resonated with multiple of those visionary types, but
Mm,
clearly one of them is going to probably if you drew a diagram, one of them is going to have more stars than all the others if you line them up. So
yeah.
in a
Yeah.
sense you're like you're like your own art gallery.
Mm, mm.
you're trying to entice people to come in and
Yeah.
mhm.
But you also don't want to be using mediums that you hate using. You don't want to be like working long hours to create something and then resentful that no one's buying it. Like you have to actually enjoy the process of running the art gallery and maintaining it. And so that's where the lifestyle side of things comes in. And that's where it's about extrapolating on the great stuff that's already there, and as opposed to like being pulled in all these directions and trying to emulate what other people do.
So I do have a question here. What should go into the post? Should it focus on my research, address a topical issue being discussed, or lifestyle stuff? What goes into creating a niche?
Hmm. Yeah,
It's a big
so it's just,
question.
yeah, it is a big question. So when I'm working on the personal branding side of things, because the brand is much broader than just the niche, but the niche is part of the brand. Sometimes the niche comes first, and sometimes the brand comes first, and the niche follows. It just really depends on the type of person and what the underlying purpose or sense of purpose is behind your business. Um, and also it's thinking about who is your ideal client? Like, do they resonate with the same things that you care about? Like, there's no point talking about like let's say if you're the freedom, I forget what the name of the archetype is, but the one that's freedom focused. Like, there's no use talking about like I'm traveling all the time and like I don't have hardly any meetings. Like that stuff is going to appeal to other writers who want more freedom, but that's not going to appeal to your ideal client. So it's looking at what makes that beneficial for your ideal client. So in that case, it's like you don't need hand holding. You don't need to have a ton of meetings to grasp what you have to do. You work very independently. You're confident. You're reliable. You can just fit in with their team, take the brief and run with it. It's thinking about that. Like, how can you, like, yes, your personal goal is to have that freedom and that autonomy, and to charge more so you don't have to work as much. But like, how does that translate into what the client wants? The client wants to know that the work is getting done to a high standard and they don't have to babysit you. So they need to know that you're competent, that you can run with the brief and get stuff done, and you're worth the money that they're paying you. So it's like flipping everything around. Instead of thinking about like it's thinking about what your ideal client needs, and then what do you bring that meets those needs, that becomes your messaging. And so your niche is just a very specific aspect of that. And again, it really just depends on the kind of person you are, and what your clients are looking for. The easiest niches to have are the ones that are therapeutic based or deliverable based, because is easier to communicate that. But that doesn't fit with everybody's personality. Not everybody wants to limit themselves to just one thing. And so if that's the case, then you have to be honest with yourself about that, and you have to be more creative with what your niche is going to be. Is it a kind of experience that someone has when they work with you? Is it um what do you want it to be? It could be anything really.
It seems to me that there's probably some lessons you can learn from, there are people who are basically professional content creators. So I see a certain overlap between what you're talking about and what you need to do as a freelancer, where there's a certain, you just got to put something out there, but you don't necessarily have to put just one thing out there. You just have to get into a habit of doing everything. You remember not necessarily from what you're writing, but, you know, I get emails and I pay attention and realize, oh, I'm getting this stuff through my feed. I remember the name because it keeps coming up. So it's, again, you talk about
Hmm.
how activity might be more important than what you actually do. So to get to this person's question, I'd say probably all three, all of those, but not at the same
Hmm.
time. This, and this. So all of it seems to me like, to answer his question, could be valid based on what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. It just depends on what your ideal client wants to see, what they need. Because you're not limited by your niche, even though your niche should be specific enough that it's memorable and that people can refer people to you very easily. You're not limited to that. So, my niche is helping freelance medical writers, but if I've worked with people in the media and training them for TV appearances, and I've done, white papers in biotech, and, you know, like I've done a lot of stuff outside of my niche. It doesn't mean that I'm limited to that. That's just what I'm choosing to focus on because how can you really be at the top of your game if you're trying to do 100 different things? Like you can't. And so if you're trying to convince people you can, you're just going to seem like you're not trustworthy.
So we're just a few minutes left. Is there any other questions for Sophie? Any questions, comments, observations, anything? Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Sophie?
Um, I'm just typing in my LinkedIn here if anyone wants to connect, message me any additional questions that come up. Like I said, I've got a lot of resources. Yeah, I think, I just think that there's a lot of information out there about, especially the pleasing the algorithm stuff or how to write good posts, but it really misses the point. If you're not keeping that bigger picture in mind about why you have this business in the first place and what success actually looks like to you and how you want to run your business every day and what's going to feel fun and enjoyable and easy for you, then you're missing the point. Like, somebody might be taking very similar actions to someone else, but for very different reasons. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I want to convey is that um, that's different for everyone. So if you're trying to look at what other people are doing and emulate that, you're not going to have a sense of purpose. Even if you have results, you're not going to feel like this is enjoyable or sustainable for you. So um it's best to be true to yourself and make it sustainable from day one.
Perfect. Thank you, Sophie. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up there. And I just want to end by saying again, this Sophie, we brought her here from the Ohio Valley chapter of AMWA, and we are supported by the American Medical Writers Association. So if you're not part of AMWA, please look them up at amwa.org. If you have any questions, you can contact me, Craig Stevens, the president of the Ohio Valley chapter, and especially particularly, or you can again find Sophie Ash online. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we're going to wave bye-bye. And everyone else, please have a nice day. Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. Feel free
All
to
right.
email me as well if you guys need
All right.
or
I am
want.
ending the recording now. Thank you. And everyone, bye-bye.